Hello and welcome everybody to the Self-Liberation Project podcast. This is episode 4 and I am Nathan Hawken. Of course, I have with me the amazing
Christy Mokutsupu. Welcome everyone.
Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and taking part in today. So today we're going to have something a little bit special because Christy and I, of course, have been talking prior to today's podcast and we've got a topic which we want to talk about. But there was also something which came up as a result of our topic last week on episode 3, where Christy had a couple of realizations since then. So what we were thinking about doing is maybe doing a little bit of coaching as part of this podcast, because one of the benefits of being witness to someone being coached or being part of like a group type of coaching is that we all get the realizations or our own insights into what is happening in our own thinking. It's very powerful. So I think it'd be a good idea is we'll get into the topic a little bit first, talk about that. And towards the end of it, I'll pass it over to you as well, Christy, so we can understand a little bit more about what happened. And then we can kind of do a little bit of coaching around that. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm ready to go. Love coaching.
Yeah, me too. Okay, cool. So what we thought about talking about today is a bit of an analogy of climbing mountains, because I know in our lives, we all feel like we've got mountains to climb. We're usually at the base of a mountain when we look up and we see something that we want to do or something that we want to achieve, or even if it's just like a difficult conversation that we have to have with someone, whether it be in work, in business, with a family member. And we can see that as a big mountain that we need to climb. And sometimes that's where the challenge lies, because we're looking at it as the big mountain and something that we're not equipped to be able to climb, or like reaching the top of it is going to be something very difficult. But it's important to realize that we've already climbed mountains before. In fact, many of them. And so the analogy that we're using today is climbing mountains, or the mountains that you have climbed, the learnings and that you've grown, the growing that you've already gone through in various things in your life to help you achieve certain things in your life, help you get to where you are today. And so when you look at the mountains ahead, they seem way easier to climb because we've already been there before for other things. And so I guess one thing I'd like to know from you, Christy, you've got like an extensive career in like being an Olympian, really pushing yourself, getting your helicopter's license and a whole range of different things. Every time you've come to a new task or a new thing that you've wanted to do for yourself, have you always seen it? Or what has been like the main thinking when you've sat down, you're like, you know, this is something I want to do. What is your typical thinking that tends to come up when you start looking at something new like that?
Yeah, it's different every time. I have to say that, getting older now, it's obviously I've got all this, you get more data. So when you're 18, you're just jumping in things and you're just doing it because you want to do something. And then after each experience now, every mountain, it's just now I've got all this data, and every time you add on more, you just get more data to plan better, because it's all about planning, preparation and planning. So I just find that now I just have a lot more data and to be able to prepare well for whatever new challenges coming ahead. And also now at my age, again, older, I'm more realistic of what's possible, what's not. And it just gets a bit easier as you get older to plan and organize, have a bit more wisdom, and really know what's ahead. Like the reality is it will be hard, it will be difficult. You may want to quit, like all those usual things. I know they're going to come up if I want to start a new challenge. It's going to be absolutely right there every single time. But your toolkit is just more packed with things ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, it's toolkit. I love that, the way of looking at it like that, because it's like every experience that you have through life, it gives you another tool in the kit to be able to use later on. I think some of the challenges are that when we are getting ourselves ready to do something, or even prior to like taking action, we get the thought like we want to do something. So your unconscious mind presents you with like a thought, which is like, hey, you should go do this. You know, sometimes I've started a hobby and the thought is like, maybe I can turn it into a business, you know, and do the work that you love for the rest of your life. And so when that thought comes, it's been quite easy to dismiss it very quickly because we see it as a big challenge. Like, because that challenge is that maybe we don't have the skills for it just yet. Maybe we've never started a business just yet. We've never done anything like this before, so wouldn't even know where to begin. And part of that process, we kind of talk ourselves out of doing it because it seems like too much to start off with. I think it comes up a lot in coaching when someone's got an idea to maybe increase their price in the business that they're doing, or reach out to someone that they think is better than them because of their status. Maybe they're a multimillionaire, maybe they're in multiple companies, but they really want to speak to them, but they struggle to do it because they feel like they're ill-equipped to kind of have that conversation, or they feel like they don't know how to start, how to take that first couple of steps to at least make contact with it. And I think that's where the challenge lies. And what you said there is quite beautiful, actually, because you realize that, well, if you choose to, you can realize that you're already equipped with the tools that you need to be able to take those first steps. And we can do that by looking back, looking back on our previous challenges, looking back on our life, on the mountains that we've already climbed, and reminding ourselves of the fact that we have been there before. We've done things which were outside of our comfort zone, which has helped us to take those steps, helped us to climb the next mountain. And one thing that I like to think about is when every time we've climbed a mountain. So if we imagine that from birth to wherever we are now, there's like little mountains that we've climbed. The first mountain is like learning how to walk. That's a tiny little mountain. And we do it because we don't really know any different. We just see everyone else doing it. So we stand up and start walking eventually. And then slowly but surely over time, the mountains get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until we're at a point where like, wow, the next mountain looks quite huge. But I like to think of at the top of each mountain, there's like a little box there. And in that box, there's a new skill or a new level of confidence or another tool that we pick up every time we ascend a mountain, every time we get to the top. And that means that we're now equipped with the next challenges which are coming. Because no matter what's happening in life, the challenges are always going to be bigger, right? We're always going to have bigger challenges. And if we tried to tackle those challenges when we were younger, we wouldn't have been able to do it as successfully because we didn't have the tools which we've gathered over time. So that's probably one of the ways I like to look at it as well. I don't know, you're out there with the community a lot. You've got a lot of people who are following you as well. Do you ever have anyone who talks about, like, maybe they look at you as an inspiration? They're like, oh, I'd love to do something that you're doing, but I don't know how to start. Or you just get some general feedback from people who are struggling to kind of take those first steps?
Definitely. I mean, I think it happens to many people where they go, oh, you're good at that. You can do that. I can't do that. And I think that it's definitely a limitation that stops us from doing things because we think, well, definitely, like my sister and I, for instance, she's very gifted in design and I'm not. It doesn't mean that I can't do design. I can do design. I can be creative. I am creative. But in taking it to that next level where someone's just extremely gifted and they can do things faster than you, that's the difference. Yeah. So I believe you can do things. Like if you want to, you can fly a helicopter. You can go study at uni. But for some people, it might come easier. And for you, you might have to work twice as hard. It's really that simple. I just think maybe there's a few things on this earth you can't do physically. You have your limitations. But generally, you can do it. You might just not do it as fast as someone else does it that's extremely gifted in that area. So that's my view on that.
That comparison game, this is what a lot of people do in general. Look, I do it myself a lot. I actually had a phone call with a friend of mine recently, which I'll tell you about in a sec. But that comparison game it can be a killer of motivation because you're too busy comparing yourself to what other people have done. Too busy comparing yourself to other business people, or like you said, your sister might be gifted in something else. So anytime you try and do some art somewhere or in design or somewhere, and it's not nearly as good, you're going to beat yourself up because you want to be that good. It's because we're too busy comparing ourselves to other things rather than actually just taking a step back and being good with who we are, how we are, what we are good at and what we want to do. Because you're right, we can do something we want to do if we take those steps to start doing it. But we have to kind of clear that thinking of that, what, all these other people have done it before, so why would I even try? It's like, no, if you want to try, you do it, right? This is the beginning of climbing the next mountain. But part of that is actually realizing that you've gotten to a point in your life today where the idea of doing something which is outside of your comfort zone has come up at the right time, right? Because at any given moment, those ideas come when we're most ready for them. It's just whether or not we take action on them, right? Because I'm sure that you've had a bunch of ideas before which have come up. Maybe you squashed them down before because you weren't quite ready, but then they come back later. You're like, actually, yeah, now's the good time, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's happening now with my flying. I haven't flown since 2019, since I got my helicopter license. And it just wasn't the right timing. And then I just knew that as soon as the voter's guide was finished, the timing was right. So it is all about timing as well. And then knowing when that right time is to go. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that there, because this is one of the things that you mentioned came up after our last podcast, right? When we were talking about the voter's guide, talking about how it's all finished now. It's been 8 months worth of work. but then you had some realizations after we recorded the podcast. So do you feel like sharing what actually happened for you?
But that's in the coaching call. I mean, that was your one line. You text me, you wrote something. What did you write? I'm good where I'm at. What was your line you wrote?
Yeah, so we were talking about this because it ties into what we're talking about in regards to climbing the next mountain and realizing the mountains we've already climbed. But it's like, it's realizing that be good with where you are right now. So no matter where you are right now, we have to think of it like as because of the mountains you've already climbed and the challenges, the hardship, the joys, the satisfactions, everything that has happened to you in your life, whether you see it as a good or bad thing, has brought you to who and where you are today, right? And where you are today and who you are today is the exact person that is well equipped to be able to take on that next challenge as it comes, you know, because you've got all the tools and resources because you've collected them from the box and every mountain in the past.
That's right. That's right. This is a great conversation I had with my sister today. So talking about being, we are content. It says in the Bible to be content in all things. And I was thinking, I am content, but I'm still not happy where I am sometimes. But in terms of, I love what I do. I get up every day and I attack life and I do what I love. But there's that space of I'm always in the uncomfortable zone. I'm never in that stagnant zone. So because I'm in that uncomfortable zone, I'm always pushing and striving for growth. And so even though I'm loving life and in the present moment, there's still that thing of, I want to be in that helicopter. I want to be in the sky. I want to be doing this. And so when you wrote that, I was like, I struggle with that. I struggle because I'm still thinking of those things that I want to achieve and do and be. And for me to switch that off and just be like, okay, today, this, I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. Is it?
I think it is possible. It's because I struggle with this myself. I've got a lot of things I want to do. I want to be doing like more coaching, more recording, more content and things like that. And I realize that when I get in that way of thinking, I'm too much of that thinking, I should say, because it's good to get excited about those things that you want to do. But I start to lose focus and lose track of what's happening today. So my attention goes from, say, my family, my kids and things like that towards all the stuff that I want to do. So I'm automatically taking myself out of the present. And sometimes I feel bad because I don't have those things just yet. And I feel like maybe I've failed somewhere along the way. Maybe it's because like I don't have the money I want to have. I don't have like the house I want to have, the car I want to have, all that stuff, which is quite irrelevant, because even now, because I'm working with a coach myself, and she also helped me realize that it's like, I've got everything I need, right? I can pay the bills, money left over. I've got a car, I've got a house, things are working fine. I have no need for anything else really. But there's the want for the other stuff later on. And it's realizing that that will come when at the right time. But to be able to be present, to be good with where you are now, to realize that you have everything that you need right now, and you don't really need anything, like the wants are very different, then yes, I think you can switch that off. Like you can switch that wanting off to be present. I think that's the thing. It's the intention to be present and content with what you've got, but still have the goals to achieve more of the things that you want.
It's definitely that fine line. I mean, I'm thinking that when I'm with my son, I really try and focus on being present. And I'm not going to say I am all the time. I definitely try and like, oh, sorry, I've got to switch off and be present to my family and exactly, move between things all day and work to be present in those moments. And then I'm thinking, okay, so definitely, I'm not going to say I'm perfect now. I can definitely get better at being more present in all the different things I do in one day.
But you're right, though. It is recognizing that, the way I see it, there's like a time and a place. Okay. So it's good to want more. It's also good to be happy with what you've got. And there's a difference between complacency and being happy and content. Okay. Because this is where I wouldn't say I struggle. I don't struggle with this anymore, but there's a lot of that talk out there from other people who are trying to sell products and things like that. They keep telling you about never leave in the comfort zone, always got to be grinding and hustling and those type of things. Look, that's all well and good, but sometimes that you need that level of comfort. You can't stay in it for too long, because if you want to grow, you got things you want to achieve, you need to be able to push yourself. But at the same time, you also need to be able to give yourself that break, give yourself that chance to just be, right? Just simply be and be good with where you are and what you've got. Now, that may not be the ideal situation for everyone, because there's a lot of people out there who are struggling, who are in far worse situations. And it's not about being happy with that, but it's being good with what you've got and realizing that you can go out and do more or be more, have more, whatever it may be. But there is that moment where if that becomes the thing that takes you away from the present and there's more important things happening right now, then I think that's where the problem really lies.
That's true. And I think I start the day off normally like that. Okay, center myself to be present, to stay focused. Like instead of everything running around, it's usually early in the morning or, first thing in the morning. And then maybe throughout the day, that's when, things could probably go off. But I do try and center myself in the first thing in the morning when I do my prayer time to get, stay present. But it's always going to be something probably, I said, I struggle with it. If I'm ever, going to, master that. Being realistic.
Yeah, but I think it's down to priorities as well. And like this could definitely spiral off into multiple podcast topics, but it's those priorities. It's prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your time for you, prioritizing your time for the work and things like that, but making sure that you are the priority. I had a conversation with my friend recently. He called up and he was struggling with a few things. And I had a good chat with him for a while, but a long story short, like he'd been in a work environment for the last 16 years where he'd been sponsored to stay in the country, and he'd literally busted his ass for so long. The owners weren't great all the time. They didn't really look after, well, they looked after him okay, but especially during COVID and that, they didn't really continue looking after their staff, and he was getting a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety as a result of it. And he had a few other things happen in between, but recently, like he left that job. He went to start a small business with a few friends. That didn't really pan out because he needed the money kind of to sustain his family and his life. And he, out of the blue, got offered a job from someone in the previous industry, more money, work from home, work however he needs to. And that's it. That's his new job. But he was having this conversation. He felt like he was a failure because of the failed small business that didn't work out for him, because of what had happened in the previous role. And I just had to remind him of a couple of things. First of all, he's actually in a better off position now because he's been given more money, more freedom, more time to be able to spend with his family. But more importantly, one thing that came up during the conversation was that he had not prioritized himself for a long time. Too busy prioritizing his staff, prioritizing the jobs, prioritizing the business, even prioritizing the family. But for a long time, he hadn't prioritized himself, to the point where he got quite emotional on the phone, and like crying is something that had been built into him. It's like, no, you're a man, you don't cry. So when this realization came that he has actually more now than he's ever had in his life, he just shifted. Like everything just changed. And that's because he's starting to realize that he needs to be here and now. And that part of his life that he was talking about that has caused him so much stress and anxiety over the years, that's done. That chapter is closed. Put that book down. It's time to focus on the future. And once we started to change that and started to look towards the next kind of mountains, if you will, he actually felt better about it because he realized that everything that he'd done up until that point had shaped him to exactly the man that he needs to be today. So he's well equipped to handle the next stage in his life.
No, that's wonderful. You can get him to that point, or anyone, all of us to that point. I still remember the same thing as well when I was just, going through my healing, and everything was about the past and healing and trauma. And it's a horrible place to be in. So when we can break through and heal that and be happy and move forward, finally, life is fantastic. So liberating.
Yeah, but it's not like we're going to have hardships moving forward, right? Because that's one thing that happens every time. Like I work with someone, and you've gone through the process where we've like let go of anger and sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt, and limiting beliefs and those type of things. It's not like we're never going to feel that again, because we're human beings. That's part of us. They're actually good things for us because it's certain motivations and drives that give us for things moving forward. But we're still going to have hardships moving forward, right? We're still going to have bigger mountains to climb. But it's that realization that all that, no matter how bad that was, is all good because it's equipped you with who you are. And that goes for things like people have gone through horrific things in their life before, but they've actually turned it around and become like a motivational speaker or shared their story, or now they're serving people in a different way. And I know it can be really hard. I've never lived through like PTSD or those type of traumas or anything like that. So I don't know what it's like personally, but I do know that you always have that thing inside you to change. They're just the mountains that you had to climb to get you to where you are. And if you're still here living on this earth, then there's still things for you to do, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So much positivity. Even for me, rock bottom, because I hit rock bottom, I'm at a space where even whatever adversity I go through, I'm like, I never want to go back there again. And I don't think anything now can be as painful as that. I mean, you know, if it does come, now I've got my faith now, my Christian faith on top of that. So I've just got all these tools that if I do come across something 10 times worse than what I went through, I have the tools, the coping mechanisms and the tools now to know what to do in adversity. So now it's a beautiful thing to, you know, move forward on from that. And then, like I said, I've been saying all video, it seems, is just have the tools to know what to do for the future and just keep moving forward and forward with more and more tools every single time.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Once you've hit that like rock bottom, how hard could anything else possibly be?
I do think like that. I think, you know, once I hit rock bottom, I never want to go back there. And that's why people go, why would you take drugs again? And I'm like, no, I never want to go back there again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy.
So that's really cool. And I think this is, I came up with a bit of an exercise for this, because for the people listening, because I thought it would be a really good thing, because in those moments when we've got like a big mountain to climb, whatever that may be, in those moments where we're feeling down or depressed or maybe hopeless, useless, whatever it may be, it's important to look back a little bit and look at the good things, not look back and be like, yeah, because this happened in my childhood makes sense while I'm feeling like shit today. It's not about that. It's about, let's look at the positive things. Let's look at everything that has happened in a good way. So I've got an exercise for you guys who are listening, if you would like to participate in it. And this is something that you can do on your own time. So take some time over the next week, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, however long it takes you, and think back on all the mountains that you've climbed, all the incredible feats that you've accomplished. Now, when we talk about mountains, it's not just like the massive things like, oh, I've just made $1 million in my business or something like that. We're talking about the little things. What about the times when you still managed to stay calm when you had a 5-month-old or a 10-month-old screaming for nights and nights and nights, and you're sleepless and you're still remaining calm and you're still showing up to work, those type of things? What about the mountains you've climbed when you first met someone and you're going through those difficult times and they end up being your wife or your partner in life? Those mountains which you've climbed at some stage, we've all had them. And the way I see it, it's probably mountains that we climb on a day-to-day basis. But look back on all those mountains and notice the tools that you've been equipped with as a result of those. Write these all down. And once you've got your list there, put that somewhere where you can actually see it. See it on a day-to-day basis, or any time that you need it when you're feeling down. So you can pull it out, remind yourself of all the incredible things that you've done, all the mountains that you've climbed. So no matter what's coming up next, you've got that resource there as a way to take on the next challenge, take on the next mountain, have the next difficult conversation. When you're feeling like you're not good enough, realize that you are good enough because of all the amazing things that you've done. And then use that as a tool to move forward. Just a reminder, if you wish to maybe support myself and Christy, because you like the work that we do, we both have Patreon pages, which you can check out. You can reach Christy at her email, which is christy@tworg.com.au. Perfect. And you can always reach me at info@nathanhawken.com. And I'll just say Hawken is Hawken, not IN, because everyone gets that mixed up. All right, cool. So guys, thank you so much for listening. As always, it's been a pleasure. Christy, thank you so much for being so raw and sharing what's been coming up for you over the last couple of weeks as well. And we will catch you guys for episode 5 next week.
We'll catch you next week, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in again.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. Thanks, guys.